Recording in progress.
Rise as you're able for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, welcome everyone to our last City Council meeting of 2024. Great to have you all here with us this evening for December 9th. And we are going to start us off with open comment as we always do, but just a reminder before we begin that we take breaks every 90 to 120 minutes between items. So for open comment, this is an opportunity for anyone from the public who would like to speak on an item that we will not be taking public testimony on during a public hearing later in the agenda. Each person has up to 2 minutes to speak for a total of 20 minutes. I'll be keeping track of time through a variety of methods. This little stoplight here and the clock on the wall. Just know that if I interrupt you, it's only because we need to make sure everybody else has a chance to speak. We request that your comments are directed towards me as the presiding officer, and that while we welcome your comments and feedback, that we ask that you do deliver those respectfully. We don't respond during open comment, but if you would like anyone from staff or council to respond, please make sure that Clerk Giesler has your information. Additionally, if you have any materials that you would like council to receive, please do give those to the clerk and she will make sure that we receive them. You'll be invited to speak in the order that you've signed up. I have a list here. And just general reminder that we encourage you to limit comments generally to topics that the city has an ability to affect policy. All right, I will go ahead and get started with open comment and call Rachel LaForge up. Welcome, you have 2 minutes. Please introduce yourself.
Thank you. I'm Rachel LaForge, resident of Rochester. Council presidents, council members, and city staff, thank you all for your service this past year. You have a really difficult job of balancing the competing needs of a lot of different stakeholders. This role is demanding of your time, your effort, and your energy, and I appreciate your work. I wish those of you who are leaving luck in your future endeavors, and for those of you whose terms can continue, hope for the years ahead. I would like to speak briefly tonight about item H1, the legislative priorities and bonding resolution. I'm pleased that the council and city staff are recognizing the need to lobby for a change to the local government aid formula as per the attached report to the item. If one reviews years of council minutes, as I have done, you will read account after account of how much the local levies for county, city, and school district impact the finances of Rochester residents and how little has changed as far as the local government aid formula. I have spoken to several of my state level elected officials, and unfortunately, not all of them agree that a formula update is necessary. I feel that in addition to encouraging more local action by voters and residents to contact their state level government officials about the LGA formula, it may be to the benefit of the city if the council itself created a more forceful statement to the state legislature demanding a change. After all, you are the ones who answer most directly to your voters. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. LaForge. Adam Busby.
Good evening. It's been 2 years now since I've been coming to city council this month. And I've learned some things. I've learned that I would never want your jobs. It's something I'm not well suited for. I've learned that, and I'm working on it to try to temper my deliverance of my message. I have never intentionally been harsh. I am very passionate about my job. I just wanted to let you all know that are leaving us farewell, and I've enjoyed getting to know you all, and I appreciate the work you've done, whether it's helping us get bathroom access and those kind of things. I appreciate the work that you do. It's a very tough job. I couldn't imagine sitting up there and taking the arrows sometimes deserved, maybe sometimes not. But I do appreciate you and thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Busby. Brad Trahan.
Council President Carlson, members of the City Council, Administrator Zelms, my name is Brad Tran, residing at 2570 Clean Lane Northeast in Ward 5. This past Saturday, with the support of community businesses, a group of community members organized the first ever winter lighted parade in Rochester's 170-year history. Downtown Dazzle, feel the magic of the season. We spent the last year in planning. Our committee had many ambitions and goals, but we decided to focus on one primary objective, a successful parade. We define success as ensuring safety, spreading joy and happiness, and boosting business activity in our downtown. After the parade, I checked my watch to see how long the parade lasted. It was 1 hour. I also noticed on my phone that I had 87 text messages. Based on everything I've seen, read, and direct messages from community members, it appears the Downtown Dazzle achieved our goal. Just a half hour before the parade, a Rochester police officer on an ATV approached me and said, "Brad, it's packed. I mean packed. 6th Street, First Avenue, it's all packed. I've never seen anything like it." Hearing this joy and happiness from one of Rochester's finest showed me that we achieved our goal even before the first unit left Edison parking lot. Yes, police officers and firefighters deserve happiness too. The pictures speak 1,000 words. Happy parents, smiling kids, exciting flow lighting units. For 1 hour, we forgot about the negative outside noise and focused on joy and happiness. The parade route was exceptional. We started at Edison, moved through a neighborly and business area on 6th Street Southwest, and then proceeded through the heart of the city known for hope and healing, and passing by our downtown businesses. Businesses were packed. Roads were packed. Starting point to finish, it was packed. Ramps were packed. Skyways were packed. It was festive, joyous, and a lot of happiness. I take this time to thank the City of Rochester, specifically the Rochester Police Department and Fire Department, for their phenomenal work. I also want to thank Rochester Public Utilities and Public Works for entering the parades. I appreciate the tremendous support from the Rochester Downtown Alliance, as well as Superintendent Piquel and the school district. I thank all the parade units, over 70 volunteers, many of them student athletes from John Marshall football, Lured football, Century Boys basketball. And I want to also thank our community sponsors, businesses, and individual donors for their financial support. In closing, I've always said we can achieve so much more by working together than any one person, entity, business, or local government group can ever do on their own. The Downtown Dazzle is a wonderful example of just that. Save the date, Saturday, December 6th, 2025. Feel the magic.
Thanks, Mr. Trahan, for the positive message. West Lund.
Hi. Certainly going to miss Mr. Bransford and Council President Carlson. And I always use your first name. I got to be careful. Kirkpatrick and Councilmember Dennis. You guys have become fixtures in Rochester, and thank you for your service to our council and to our city. And I would like to say, though, that please find a way to lower our taxes in the coming years, because our property taxes have really gone up a great deal in Rochester. I think it's between 5 and 10% from the city levy, and the cumulative effect with inflation of the tax increases, including the school bonding issue that was passed, the other one that was extended, the sales tax, which was passed, and a 24-year extension and a sales tax increase. I think it's going to serve to prevent businesses from choosing Rochester as a place to open up a business. And we need a more diverse business environment in Rochester so we can have tax-paying citizens and people working here in a diverse business climate, not just a monolithic monoculture of one major employer, or two rather, the state and the statists, along with Mayo Clinic, of course. Maybe there should be consideration of having sales tax or some other sort of tax. Mayo is the largest property tax payer, but maybe there's another way that they can pay for some of the dream projects that they want for their organization. And then the last thing I'd want to say is I hope we can see a report from Mayor Norton as to her contacts and her whereabouts at the World Economic Forum, and also with the National League of Cities, which politicians she was with, and how much the trip cost Rochester, or if she paid for it herself. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Lund. Casey McGregor.
Good evening, Council. Casey McGregor. Tonight, I urge Council to not remove Councilman Dennis this evening. Elected officials are there to represent the people that voted them in and not have their language policed by other councilmen or staff. Last week, I saw Councilman Dennis's removal as casual language versus legal language. And I'm dyslexic, and it just gets under my skin. She has no clue I'm saying this, but I just fear that you're policing language, and I don't like it. Number two, why is Allison Zelms getting a 3% raise when attorney got 2% raise? When council voted and removed the cap on these positions and their raises, is there a new cap in place, or will the taxpayers just endlessly pay for raises in these positions now? 3, legislative priorities. How can electric charging stations be #1 priority? Who owns electric vehicles, wealthy people or poor people? Why would that be our #1 priority? The solar panels, I think you should put at the airport. However, they should not be #1 priority either. Thank you to all that served on the council this year and won't be returning. And Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to you all.
Loring Stead.
Hello, Honorable Mayor, not here, that's all right, and council members, nice to meet you. Loring Stead, 217 14th Avenue Southwest. Rochester, Minnesota is our city of great promise. Home to Mayo Clinic, global beacon of medical excellence. Our community has thrived in the light of Mayo's success. A success born out of collaboration after the devastating tornado of 1883. This disaster was a catalyst to change. Rochester truly leads by example. I'm here to directly address the taxes situation. Today, Mayo's $5.3 billion expansion symbolizes continued progress driven by a workforce spanning not just physicians and nurses, but tens of thousands of dedicated to making it happen. However, for many in Rochester, the sunlight of prosperity doesn't always reach them in the neighborhoods. They instead often find themselves in the shadow, struggling with rising cost. Tax hikes threaten to widen this divide, especially for those on fixed incomes or working outside the healthcare sector. We must seek solutions that are more reasonable and sustainable to mitigate these challenges. These proposals for the tax hikes are raw, real, and untenable. Let's just imagine just for a minute. Ideas to achieve our community goal. Highest priority is to implement gradual tax increases. Let's continue to envision 5 to 6% increases instead of possible proposed 10% tax increases. These growing commitments are just not doable for many of our family, friends, and our neighbors. A jump from 6 to 10% is not merely 4%. It represents a 67% larger burden on taxpayers, a significant and often overlooked reality. In conclusion, let's ensure Rochester remains a city that cares, listens, and serves always, where all can thrive, whether in the sunlight of Mayo's achievements or the quieter areas of our community. Thank you, and please give it some strong consideration. We're counting on you to make it happen. Please do that. Lead by example, make it happen, service above self.
Thank you, Mr. Stead, or Dr. Stead. Jeff Derby.
Hello, thank you for having me up here. We tell our kids, Nora, save up enough money to buy that car. Eric, save up for that down payment for a house to avoid the extra PMI insurance costs. We do this because we love our kids. So why then do we run our city with debt? It's time we save up for the big purchases. It's time we become good role models for our kids. And that our good loving advice to them is not just do as I say and not as I do. We can't afford the Porsche just because the bank says we can. We know we can't, we know we shouldn't. It's time we start acting on our beliefs of fiscal conservativeness or we die in bankruptcy and inflation. I've spoken to many acquaintances and they all say the same thing when I ask them if they will be attending this public meeting we're all at right now. And I get the same response. Well, if I went, I'd be arrested because I get so heated, I'm not going. So when you hear us get heated or you hear of this true story, do you conclude that it's just one person here that's upset and the rest of the people in Rochester are happy and want us to continue with business as usual? Or take it seriously that maybe the city should adjust its sails? I'm here to help you succeed in doing the will of the people, not vilify you. Let me remind you of the will of the people. The exact similar set of circumstances just happened on a national level with the election, the president. The government said everything's good, things are getting better, we got more to do. Nobody felt that way. People felt gaslighted. The silent majority spoke up and voted for Trump. So I believe that's the truth. I believe that's the majority of what Rochester agrees. The popular vote is conservative fiscal policy. And if you don't believe the last thing I just said, how many studies does the city conduct that provide an accurate number of the people that stand for approving a new project versus the number of people that disapprove? Such as the Broadway Bridge, new building at the fairgrounds, the Old Town homeless renovation, Silver Lake pool remodel, new equipment at Cook Park, new water slide at Soldiers Field. How can we trust that the will of the people is being implemented? Because neither me nor you can speak to 60,000 people to get a true picture.
Final
Have-
thought.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak? That's all I have for the list. All right, we will call open comment closed and officially call the meeting to order. Geisler, please call the roll.
Councilmember Keen,
Here.
Councilmember Bransford,
Here.
Councilmember Wall,
Here.
Councilmember Kirkpatrick. Councilmember Kirkpatrick. Here. Oh, thank you. Councilmember Palmer.
Here.
Councilmember Dennis.
Present.
Council President Carlson.
Here.
And Mayor Norton is absent.
All right, thank you, clerk. I will turn it over to City Administrator Allison Zelms for her report.
Thank you, Council President. I typically start the meeting by thanking all of our council members and the community for coming out and actually share that we thank our teammates for always acting with respect, integrity, safety, and excellence in mind. And tonight, I share those sentiments with the Common Council, particularly in recognizing that 4 of you are completing your work this evening. Council members Bransford, Dennis, Kirkpatrick, and Council President Carlson. As your terms on the City Council come to an end, we want to thank you for your valuable contributions and unwavering dedication to our mission. On behalf of the leadership team and the city organization, we have a small token of appreciation to memorialize your time serving as council members and helping our organization move forward together. Your leadership and commitment have guided us through the end of a pandemic and allowed us to begin to achieve progress in affordable living, economic vibrancy and growth management, and quality services. Just a few examples are the extension of the half-cent sales tax to bring new access to sports and recreation, rebuild roads, improve flood control, and support economic vibrance with a continuing half-cent sales tax. Almost $150 million in state and federal grants for economic revitalization, link rapid transit, road reconstruction, a new bridge, and safety improvements, clean energy, and more. Soldiers Field Park and pool improvements, Silver Lake Park, which will begin construction in the spring, and updating the land development manual to a modern unified development code that meets today's needs. This helps to ensure we meet the community vision to be a city that cares, renowned for its reputation as a center for growth and innovation, characterized by its safe and friendly neighborhoods, committed to health and wellness for its people, connected both physically and socially, and dedicated to the sustainable and responsible use of public resources. Your work will leave a lasting impact on our organization and the community we serve. Of course, you have just a bit more work yet to do this evening, but please know that your time, energy, and expertise have been greatly appreciated, and your legacy will continue to inspire those who follow you. As you move forward, I hope you take pride in the work you've accomplished and the difference that you've made. Thank you again for your service, sometimes thankless, and on behalf of Team Rochester, we wish you the best in your future endeavors.
Thank you for that. Thank you, everyone. That was very touching. Okay, well, the mayor is away, but I need to take a second to share a few mayoral updates before we move on to the meeting. So a couple things. Just a joy that I get to read a proclamation on my last council meeting. So it is Computer Science Education Week. Is the clerk's office putting up slides? Next one, and then we're going to go back to that one. All right, so it's Computer Science Education Week this week, December 9th through 15th. There's a website with more information, but I'm going to go ahead and quickly read this proclamation. Whereas computer science education promotes innovation, economic development, and technological advancement in our community, state, nation, and world. Whereas computer science education is essential for people to thrive in an increasingly digital and technology-driven world, fostering critical thinking, creativity, as well as organization and problem-solving skills. Whereas ensuring equitable access to computer science education prepares students for success in many varied careers and empowers them to be active, informed citizens in a technology-driven democracy. Whereas the City of Rochester acknowledges the dedication of educators, schools, and organizations in providing high-quality computer science education and the importance of supporting initiatives that expand access to all. Whereas Computer Science Education Week, held from December 9th to 15th, 2024, celebrates the transformative role of computer science in shaping our future and inspires students to explore the field through hands-on learning opportunities. And whereas Rochester Public Schools has a number of strong computer science courses and media programs, but seeks to increase the number and diversity of students who participate and succeed in the study of computer science. Now, therefore, Mayor Kim Norton of the City of Rochester recognizes the importance of computer science education and does hereby declare the week of December 9th through 15th as Computer Science Education Week. And then the other really great update is something we talked about last week with the Mayo Civic Center update, and that is that there's yet again this year, after a really successful event last year, a New Year's Eve celebration on December 31st from 11 to 8 p.m. at the Mayo Civic Center. There's more a website here with more information, but it is a really family-friendly, fun event, so hope you can stop by. And I will that is all I have for the mayor's report, and we will move on to approving the order of the agenda. We did have one change to the order of the agenda, and that is adding F21. All of council have been made aware. We all have received that item, and the agenda has been republished with that update. Otherwise, I would invite a motion to approve the order of the agenda.
I'll move to approve with the one addition onto the consent agenda.
Second.
All right, Councilmember Keen, any discussion?
No, nothing to add.
Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Motion carries. All right, moving on to the consent agenda. I believe we have a few items being pulled tonight. Councilmember Palmer is pulling F12 and F21, correct? Councilmember Dennis, I have you pulling 9, 14, 17, and 18.
Yes, I'm going to rescind my F14. I talked to the Deputy Chief of the Fire Department, Chris Ferguson, and we talked for quite a while, and he answered all the questions about that purchase. So I'm going to rescind that. And then I also talked to Deputy City Administrator Steinhauser, and I believe that the combination of using city resources with Mayo's working to the storm water and all that reconstruction, I think that looks okay. So I'm going to rescind both of those, but I would still like to pull the city administrators increase and merit increase of 3%. Thank you.
Okay. All right, so I have 9, 12, and 21 being pulled. So I'd invite a motion to approve in block items F1 through 8, 10 through 11, and 13 through 20.
So moved.
Councilmember Keen, any discussion?
Again, just point out there's so much work that goes into our.
Microphone's off.
There's so much work that goes into our consent. Some of it goes by. There's a lot of work on parking changes, but these are things that we've reviewed in detail. So again, I'm comfortable passing them through the consent agenda.
All right. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say nay. Motion carries.
Point of order.
Councilmember Keen?
Yeah, I want to suspend our rules and move to allow a vote to approve F9 without discussion or debate to protect the confidentiality of the administrator's private personal data consistent with Minnesota Data Practices Act, as well as her existing contract terms.
Second.
All right,
I don't think this needs further
Yep.
discussion.
let's go ahead and vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay.
Nay.
All right, motion carries 6-1. Moving on to our 5 public hearings for the night. I always take a second to go through. This is my last time going through the order of our public hearings, but we always start with a staff introduction. And then if there is an applicant, the applicant has a chance to provide a presentation for up to 10 minutes. Then we have public comment as some people have signed up, but I'll also call if there are others who would like to comment. We'll close the public hearing. The applicant has a chance to provide a rebuttal for up to 5 minutes, and then council can ask clarifying questions of the applicant or staff before we move into a motion, discussion, and vote. So we will begin with items G1 and G2. We'll be taking these items together for the staff presentation, the applicant presentation, and the public hearing, but we will require 2 motions as usual for these items. The growth management map motion needs to occur first. It needs a supermajority in order to pass. So I will turn it over to Desmond McGeough. He will introduce both items. Go ahead.
Thank you, President Carlson. Members of the council, good evening. My name is Desmond McGill. I'm with the Community Development Department. The proposed GMMA is a request for growth management map amendment that's going to change 27 acres from urban expansion beyond 2050 to near-term urban expansion on the city's growth management map. Annexation 2024-007 ANX is a request to incorporate 67 acres of land into the city of Rochester. Both applications have been submitted by Danielson Family Farms and Stark Enterprises. The subject site is located on the northeast of the intersection of 18th Avenue Northwest and 55th Street Northwest. Danielson Family Farms recently received approval of a 47-acre annexation located right on the corner of 18th and 55th in May 2024. The subject area of these applications are located north and east of this previous annexation. Approximately 60% of the proposed area to be annexed is currently located in a near-term urban expansion area on the P2S growth management map area, and 27 acres is located within the urban expansion beyond 2050 area. The primary reasoning for this was due to the topography of the site, which was facing slope to the north on those 27 acres towards the Northwest Territories Sanitary Sewer District. In 2022, the consultant met with the Public Works team to talk about the potential of designing sewer infrastructure to flow to the south into the Kings Run sewer shed. In meetings, the consultant demonstrated that the 27 acres could be directed in that manner. The review team does support this. Including the 27 acres into the Kings Run sewer district, as there is adequate capacity. It can be done via gravity-fed system, and it allows the corner of this property to be developed today rather than many years down the road. The review team also recommends the approval of the 67-acre annexation as it meets the criteria of the UDC, and it's contiguous with city limits. Planning and Zoning Commission has unanimously recommended approval of both the management map amendment and the proposed annexation. That concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. We'll get back to you, Mr. McGeough. I will invite the applicant or representative of the applicant up.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for allowing me to be here. My name is Jason Kulik. I'm a Director of Development with Stark Enterprises. We are a Cleveland, Ohio-based developer with 40 years of mixed-use commercial and residential development experience. We've developed in 8 states we currently have a $2 billion portfolio, and we have currently $1 billion in construction. Although we are from the Midwest, Rochester is among the first proposed project for us in the Midwest. We've vetted many markets around the country for our next community. We have found few as strong as Rochester. With the ever-growing presence of the Mayo Clinic, we believe the economic impact will ripple throughout the city of Rochester, bringing a host of new jobs, businesses, and of course, residents. Olmsted County is projected to increase population by over 27,000 residents between 2020 and 2030, with Rochester accounting for the majority of the growth. Between 2020 and 2030, Rochester is projected to need approximately 4,500 new rental units and 6,000 for sale units for a total of 10,500 needed units overall by 2030 to accommodate the city's population growth and housing shortage. This imbalance in supply and demand highlights the need to bring new diverse housing options to the market. To summarize, we believe in the strong growth of the Rochester population and economy over the next several decades, and we would love to be able to provide the community with a high quality, reasonably priced product to live, work, and grow in. Thank you very much. And I'm going to
Thank you.
have Bill Toynton from WSC.
Okay, so we'll get back to you if there, or Mr. Toynton, would you like to speak? Okay, come on up. Still part of the applicant's 10 minutes.
Okay, all right. Thank you, President Carlson, members of the council. For the record, I'm Bill Toynton with WSE. We're working with Stark Enterprises. I just wanted to separate out the applications under consideration. The growth management plan would change 27 acres, or about 40% of their total property, from the urban expansion beyond 2050 to near term. And the key issue again is, we can serve this with, excuse me, sanitary sewer. The second application is combined annexation and zone change to R2. The landowners file for annexation by petition. Properties contiguous with the city. And obviously, we want to develop on city utilities here. The zone change to R2 is a low density district, which is part of the annexation request. The R2 zoning is consistent with the land use and the comprehensive plan. I wanted to mention that you may hear later on in the public hearing about traffic studies and traffic concerns. We originally filed a traffic study on behalf of Anthony Properties, who owned the west side of the property. It's quite some time ago. It did not include the Stark proposal of the low density. We now Stark has hired the same traffic consultant. They submitted in late October. It's under review by the city and the county. I can tell you that there is traffic mitigation proposed for 18th Avenue, but I don't make the final decision on that. That's going to be up to the city and the county traffic engineers as to whether or not they'll support what the traffic consultant has provided. And the last, and probably one of the most important things we've been waiting for, is you'll get a general development plan on the entire 115 acres at one time if we proceed to get through this evening. Community development supports the applications, provided the criteria to support approval, and we received unanimous approval by the Planning Commission, and this project will help meet a critical shortage of low density housing. With that, I just end and ask if there's any questions come up. We'll be happy to answer those.
Sounds
Thank
good.
you.
We'll get back to you after the public hearing. Thank you, Mr. Toynton. So I will open the public hearing. I do have a few people signed up, or just one, Bruce Buller. Nice to see you here. Welcome.
Bruce Buller. I live at 1900 Ballington Boulevard Northwest, which is west of the piece of property we're talking about. But I want to speak about 18th Avenue that runs between the two properties. In 20,000 when the building was proposed and built that I live in, the traffic was much less intense than it is now. And they're both left-hand turn and right-hand turn into the new property. Both are left-hand turn and right-hand turn into our property. It was to be done when the building was finished, but it was never done. One, you may want to ask that person who built the building, do you want to pay for it? He may say yes or no. That means that something has to happen in a budget. Secondly, I watched the fire truck, and we get 2 or 3 representations every week, come up 18th Avenue and signal to turn into our property. 2 cars came over the hill. He let the first one go by and turn before the second one. Well, the second one ended up in the wrong lane. I talked to the fire people at the grocery store. Do you understand 18th? Yeah, we know about that. You need to think about it to happen in 2025 because that's when the bulldozers will be there. Now, there's a drain. We didn't know about it till it was cleared this summer, I know about it now, and someone may have to move that down the hill a ways to work out this process, but do consider 18th Avenue Northwest in your process of saying yes to this piece of property. Thank you.
Mr. Buller. Would anyone else who hasn't signed up like to speak on this item? All right, we'll close the public hearing and invite the applicant back up. If you would like to provide a response. And appreciate Mr. Buller's comments. I know that those are not specifically related to these two agenda items, they're future conversations, but if you have a response, that's great.
Thank you for your concern. As Bill stated, we have submitted our traffic study. We are currently waiting on a response. I followed up last week, so I'm hoping to hear something hopefully by the end of this year. And we'll be working with the city and the county to mitigate whatever we need to.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, are there questions for staff or the applicant? Councilmember Keen?
For staff, it's my understanding that 18th Avenue north of 55th Street is a county road. Is that actually a city street?
It is a county road. It's a
Okay.
county highway.
And these discussions that we're having here, are the county engineers aware of them?
Yes, they go through the review process
Yep.
when we forward the application.
Okay, thank you.
Any, Councilmember Wall?
This isn't a question right away, but a couple of people have actually been working on that 18th, and we've been in contact with the county for quite some time. And it was the county that surfaced the problem that back in 2001 or 1999, in which the original developer didn't add the appropriate turn lanes. So goodness knows where that's going to end up. When the first 47 acres were annexed, I was one who voted no because I wanted all 150 annexed. So I'm clearly in favor because the second annexation here will mean low-density housing. The scope of a particular project is not part of the actions requested tonight, but it is in the narrative. So my question is, and I know that the applicant has some previous knowledge of this question, what is, and I ask the city staff too, what is the appetite of Rochester for a 330 unit rental low density? We have one single family low density rental right now, a community. What's the market research that would say we can sustain 330 more rental low density units?
Would staff like to respond? Otherwise, I'd invite the applicant back up.
I would suggest maybe the applicant respond to that because they prepared the market study.
Sure. Please come back up.
Thank you. I can't remember the name of the market study. If you could maybe remind me. That's it. Thank you. Yes. We felt that the market study would support 330 rental units. They will be market rate rental units. And we feel that with the presence of the Mayo Clinic, we feel that this will strongly, I guess, encourage the growth of that as well.
So have any of your previous developments been low density rental communities?
Correct. Yes. So our previous developments have ranged between 200 and 400 units. Most of them have been in the South and in Florida mostly, and in the Carolinas. So like I said, this will be the first in Midwest. We feel strongly about this market as well.
Thank you.
Councilmember
Sir?
King?
Yeah. Again, it's a little bit unfair to ask this, but you probably have much more market understanding than we do. This is the second large, like single family or low density development that's come to Rochester and then said, but our business model is rental versus ownership. This council early on really struggled with the idea that we were building enough rental and we wanted more single family owner occupied homes. We're not getting those. Is that something changing in the marketplace, or is there any insight you can give us to say this just doesn't happen like it did 40 years ago?
Yeah, we believe it is something changing in the marketplace. You know, this build for rent style, these communities have kind of been popping up all over the place, especially in the Midwest. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Redwood Living. They're kind of the leaders in this. We're kind of closely following them. We feel that, you know, people my age are more likely to rent now, especially I guess the active adults as well. So this is marketed towards my age and also empty nesters as well. But we do feel like it is changing in the market.
Thank you.
Any final questions? Otherwise, a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Make a motion to approve adopting a resolution approving growth management map amendment number CD 2024-002 GMMA by Danielson Farms and Stark Enterprises to amend approximately 27.1 acres from urban expansion beyond 2050 to near-term urban expansion on the city's growth map.
Second.
Councilmember Palmer, you have the floor.
Nothing more to add.
Any other discussion? Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Say nay. Motion carries. All right, moving on to item 2, which is the annexation petition, number CD 2024-007, ANX by Danielson Farms and Stark Enterprises. So this is just the subsequent item. Were there any additional questions? Okay, otherwise a motion.
I'd like to make a motion, a two-part motion. Number 1, approving the annexation ordinance by Danielson Family Farms to incorporate 67.77 acres and change of zoning designation to low-density residential. And number 2, directing the city attorney to prepare an ordinance for the first reading.
All right, Councilmember Keen, you have the floor.
No, again, I've been surprised by this watching, and I know we really worked towards trying to have more of these offerings. When this first came up, we almost didn't want to approve it because it didn't have this sort of single family. But now that they're coming different than I thought, and I'm just trying to get acclimated to it.
Councilmember Bransford.
It's kind of fun that on
You're-
the last. It's kind of fun on my last council meeting that annexation and edge growth has come up. Because 4 years ago, I ran on balanced growth downtown, growth on the edge. And what we need is an all of the above approach, whether it be rentals or home ownership. Now, the narrative that the market has shifted such that younger people just want to rent is, I think, a bit fallacious. In my experience, a lot of people have just come up to me at a coffee shop and said, why can't I buy a house here? We need ownership options, whether they be condos or houses, and we need a lot of them. And I appreciate the fact that, their business model is they're gonna push rentals, that's fine. But we do need home ownership, and infill development downtown will not be affordable. The land costs are too high. I don't care how you roll the dice down there. It's just not going to happen. So I'm very happy to be doing this. I just hope that we as a council and a city going forward are able to start figuring out how to have ownership options even in more dense development. We have to have it. We need that. We need the ability for people to invest in a property and grow their wealth and not just rent. So I'm happy to support this. I think it's great. I love the all of the above, but we really do need, and that's what the Maxfield study is also showing, we need to have ownership options as well. So I really hope that the developer, listens and hears. I think that's important. So, but that's my soapbox off.
We do have another agenda item in the EDA meeting that is specific to ownership opportunities. All right. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. McGeough. Moving on to item G3, and just a point of order, Anthony, where is he? There he is. We are the applicant for this item, correct? Okay. All right, so G3 is the vacation petition number CD 2024-007 VAC by the City of Rochester, and we're pleased to welcome a new staff member to introduce this item, Anthony Cheeky.
Good evening, Council President Carlson, council members. My name is Anthony Cheeky from Community Development, and before you is CD 2024-007 VAC by the City of Rochester. The property is located generally within the northeast portion of the city between 41st and 44th Street Northeast, west of Highway 63 North and Broadway Avenue North. The request is to vacate an undeveloped right-of-way within the Morris Memorial subdivision and the existing utility easement originally dedicated in 2016. The existing right-of-way was never constructed and has remained vacant since the plat was recorded in 2016. The vacation of the right-of-way and adjacent utility easements are to be relocated through a future minor land subdivision plan and site development plan, which will ultimately support the development of a future city facility for Parks and Forestry. I'm available if there are any questions.
All right, thank you. We'll open the public hearing. Is there anyone who would like to speak on this item? Seeing no one, we'll close the public hearing. Are there any questions for staff? Otherwise, I'd invite a motion.
I'll move to adopt a resolution approving vacation petition CD 2024-007 VAC by the City of Rochester with two conditions to vacate the public right-of-way and utility easements associated with Morris Road Northeast.
Second.
Councilmember Keen, you have the floor.
No, I think this is a good follow-up from the purchasing work we did earlier in the year, and I'm pleased with the direction this is taking.
All right, any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Moving on to item G4, which is the final plat, number CD 2024-039 plat to be known as Pennington Business Park, 9th subdivision. And we have Mr. Cheeky here for this item too. Go ahead when you're ready.
Good evening, Council President Carlson and council members. Again, I'm Anthony Cheeky from Community Development, and before you is CD 2024-039 plat. It's final plat by Devco Preservation LLC for the re-subdivision of 5 lots into a single 11.58 acre parcel to be known as Pennington Business Park 9th subdivision. Previously, there has been an approved general development plan, which this final plat is consistent with. The community development is recommending approval with one condition, and I'm available for any questions.
All right, thank you. I'll open the public hearing. Is there anyone who would like to speak on this item, G4? Hearing none, we'll close the public hearing. And are there any questions for staff? Hearing none, I'd invite a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve adopting a resolution approving the final plat number CD 2024-039 plat by DEV Company Preservation LLC to be known as Pennington Business Park 9th subdivision with one condition for the re-subdivision of 5 lots into a single lot, 11.58 acre parcel.
Second.
Councilmember Palmer, you have the floor.
Nothing.
Any other discussion? All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Motion carries. All right, moving on to our final public hearing, which is the second amendment to the 2024 annual action plan of the city's community development block grant. And we have Mr. Svenby here for the first of several items.
Too many items.
Not too many, a few.
Brent Svenby, Community Development. Good evening, Council President Carlson, members of the council. I'm here before you this evening with a second amendment to our block grant funding for 2024. Just a quick recap. The council did do the allocations back on October 2nd of 2023. Then we got our funding amounts had shifted somewhat. So then I came before the council back on May of this year with the first amendment. Now I'm before you for the second amendment to the 2024 funding. Basically, we are looking to do three new activities. 2 activities are based on previous funding amounts that the council kind of agreed on. One is doing a new activity for affordable housing planning, and basically that's helping fund a position at the Housing Coalition. The second one is funding for Bob's Trailer Park. We're going to allocate $120,000 to Bob's for demolition of that trailer park, and then when that property is sold, that money will come back to us and it'll go back into the block grant program. And then the third activity, earlier this year, we partnered with the Park and Rec Department on the notices they sent out to property owners in regards to diseased and dangerous trees on people's properties. So if they income qualified, we accepted their application and we provided block grant funding to help cover the cost of tree removals on their property. So in your packet is a list that shows the current allocations with the proposed allocations. So this evening, we're asking the council to adopt the proposed allocations. None of the funding is going away from the public service activities All the funding is located within either the admin or the block grant rehab program. We do have enough funds to cover those programs until we receive our 2025 funding. Any questions?
We'll get back to you with questions since it's a public hearing. I will open the public hearing. Would anyone like to speak on this item related to the community block grant? All right, we'll close the public hearing and welcome Mr. Sven. Councilmember Wall, go ahead.
So you answered a question in a very pleasing way, I think. While the $100,000 was taken away from the rental rehab, the program's not going away, it's just funded differently.
Well, we have enough funding there to finish our projects for this year and starting the 25 projects. So then we'll get our 25 funding in July or August of next year. So there's funding in that program to continue that program. So
Because we still expect to do that.
we're not, that's not going away. So we
Good.
still
Thank you.
expect to do that. And actually any repayments that we get from people that are selling their homes in that program, that money also goes back into the rehab program. So we're funded enough to cover.
Good. Any other questions? Or is that you raising your thumb?
No,
Okay,
it's not.
okay. A motion then.
I will move to approve the Second Amendment for the 2024 Annual Action Plan for the City of Rochester Community Development Block Grant Program to reallocate funds.
Second.
All right, Councilmember Keen, you have the floor.
Yeah, again, we've been through this a little bit differently before. This is something where we say, are we really paying this for somebody? And we're not. The City of Rochester is making a loan to expedite this work. And I think that's a good priority. And as this works out, the money will come back and be used for what we had originally expected it to. So I'm in support.
Other discussion? Councilmember Kirkpatrick?
I'm just really glad to see that Bob's Trailer Court is finally being taken care of. I've heard a lot about this in the last 2 years, so thank you very much for jumping on that. And I think there's going to be a lot of residents, and I'm hoping that that property will go to good use with all of the infrastructure that's there. We can do some smaller homes, increasing rentals in a smaller space. And then, of course, it's very costly to take down diseased or damaged trees. So this is a nice thing to do for our public, helping to ease that burden of tree removal or limb pruning that needs to be done for safety.
I will say that we did find some funding to continue that tree program into next year. So we'll offer that funding also next year. So
thank you.
I'm also just wanting to add that I'm a big fan of braiding together funding to fund shared positions. So glad to see that we're contributing to the housing position as well. I think that shows our commitment and continuing to be thinking as a coalition across our community in solving housing challenges. Any other discussion? All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Motion carries. All right, we are moving on to reports and recommendations. And we have our legislative director, Heather Corcoran, here to talk us through our 2025 legislative priorities and bonding resolution.
Thank you, Council President Carlson, and the clerk's office is getting us set up with the slides. Thank you. My name is Heather Corcoran. I'm the Legislative Policy Director for the city, and I'm here today to ask for your consideration and adoption of our legislative platform for the coming legislative session. Okay. We can move to the next slide, or if someone has the, awesome. There we go. I think this happened during the study session too, so.
I looked at it, I was like, what is that? And then I did nothing.
This is our graphic that might look familiar to you, showing our process every year that we go through to develop and get feedback from both our internal team and external partners about potential issues, and then come before you in December as we are doing, and then January through May is the regular legislative session. So today we're asking for your consideration and approval. Wanted to take just a few seconds to level set us into the landscape at the Capitol for the coming session. It's going to be unique and interesting, probably in every sense of the word. We're encountering a tie at the House, 67 members of the DFL party and 67 members of the Republican Party. This has only happened one other time in recent memory. There was also a special election to fill a senator spot, so there are a handful of new members. Our own local delegation did not change, but there will be a lot of new faces that need to get acclimated to the processes and procedures, and also an office building that is under construction for the House of Representatives. The way that the leadership is currently planning to deal with this House tie is to appoint co-chairs for every committee. And this is something that has never been done before. When this tie happened in the late 70s, they divided and conquered essentially between the speakership and the most prominent committees. This time they're going at it a different way, and we will see in real time how this experiment plays out with shared power structure between the parties, and then also equal membership in each of the committees for parties. So if those of you who are familiar with maybe how the end of session usually goes, or we have conference committees sometimes between the, if there's one party in charge in the Senate and the House and they have to come to agreement. Some have said that this co-chair could seem like a fast forward into May for 4 months, and perhaps there'll be more compromises made through that process. We've also seen when that conference committee process does not yield us quite what we'd like at the Capitol either. So we will see how that goes, but if there's decisions or opportunities for our platform, we want to be at the table and ready to take advantage of those. The Senate will maintain the DFL control, and the governor also stays the same as previous year. It's a budget year. The state has to pass a budget. The regular session will begin on January 14th. Constitutional adjournment date is May 21st. However, they have until June 30th technically to come to a budget agreement before a state government shutdown would occur. So we'll see again how the timeline looks when reality happens. And this could also be a bonding year because there was not a bonding bill passed last year. So I'll go through these relatively quickly since you saw them September 30th when I presented a very similar presentation to the study session. There's a updated bonding request I'll talk about in a second. We highlight in the document the 22-page flip page. Talks about a large priority related to the Chateau Theater and being able to activate that space even more, providing opportunity hopefully around operations funding for our oncoming bus rapid transit system, and then really beefing up our story on local government aid and other ways to support the services we provide as a regional center. There's also a lot more based on the recent conversations at the Capitol related to housing and zoning. So you'll see in the attached resolution for your consideration and in our priorities, we've got 3 bonding requests. 2 of them should look very familiar to you. The airport and the riverfront were previous requests. And then the newer one is around sewer infrastructure, opportunities that help us unlock housing in the city. And just to spend a little bit more, the sewer project helps check a lot of boxes, as you all just discussed. Increasing the availability of lots for housing is a key priority for the community and the region. This project would be feasible. It's a large request, but it's something that could be broken into pieces if there's an appetite at the Capitol to fund something like this. It's also an opportunity for us to preview the work and efforts that we're making around housing to the Capitol and committees there. You'll see this is a summary slide toward the end here. Again, talking about our city-specific requests in addition to the ones that I just talked about. We'll also be seeking with your approval 2 requests for sales tax exemptions around the water reclamation plant and the upcoming RPU effort around advanced metering infrastructure equipment for their electrical side. The water side for meters are actually already exempt in state law. So with that, I open it up for discussion or questions.
Sure. Thank you, Ms. Corcoran. Are there questions? Councilmember Palmer?
So you have these ordered 1, 2, and 3. Is that our wish list, or would you like to get all 3 funded? Would you like to get the biggest one funded? Why would we want to go, if we've already tried to get the airport, why would we want to try that again?
I think it's a good question. The airport got a lot of traction last year. I think if there was a bonding bill, I'd like to think that we would have had a really good bipartisan support for that project. It was part of the bonding tour from both House and Senate. We had great authors that were bipartisan for that bill. There's an urgency in funding that project because I think the paving of the airport parking lot is going to occur very soon. And whether it has this added infrastructure, which would be in alignment with our climate goals, reducing greenhouse gases, also providing an amenity for people who use that regional airport, and that we've invested a lot of federal and state funds into continuing to offer that as an opportunity for the state to fund and help support us, I think makes sense. But they are listed in rank order, so thanks for pointing that out, and that would be something we would advocate for them in that order.
So on the second one, the infrastructure, that's something that everybody has talked about, housing on both sides of the aisle. It's a huge issue. It's a huge issue for us. I mean, for me, I would like to see that as number one. And is there a rationale in your head that we don't want that to be number one?
I think given the urgency with the airport's infrastructure need, we wanted to keep that. We've gotten great momentum and that project has been daylighted with the committees that will be deciding the bonding bill if there is one. So keeping the momentum there for a limited time. I don't think we're going to be having that on our list forever because that parking lot is either going to be repaved, like I said, very soon with this added investment level or not at all. I don't know if others want to say more about that.
So when we've done tours out there with different people, it seems to be odd that they want to put it on the building and there's sight lines with the control tower and stuff. I go back to the infrastructure one. It just seems that if you're going to get one, why not try for the biggest one? And then hopefully, Rochester gets one and it'd be easy to say, well, let's give them the $3 million one versus the $35 million one. So that's my rationale for wanting to maybe change them. And then the LGA, I don't know if you've heard, but I asked you about LGA in the past. How are you going to change that so we get it funded?
I appreciate the question.
You're going to change.
No, it's a big interest area. I think if you look at I don't have it in front of me, or I do, but the in-depth document does talk about the items that you saw in September that lay out the per capita difference between our peers and the other cities of the first class. I think it establishes our need more clearly for the services we provide, as you know, having library, trail system, airport, wastewater, a lot of things that are provided by other taxing jurisdictions in the metro area. Looking at the options as we have had meetings with our legislators and would going forward after you approve these, it's something that we would want to discuss with them to see what their appetite is for going after either local government aid funding and or the public safety aid to have that be ongoing. That was just one time, so that's not presumed to come again unless cities advocate for it, or other sources of funding that could help get at the things that local government aid funds.
And are you looking at it more from a regional perspective and saying that we're a regional hub and that's why these are 850 cities in the state of Minnesota, about a third of them get LGA, is that about right?
I'd have to look at the number again. It's not all of them though.
Okay, so then in my head, and Bloomington doesn't get it, Rochester badly needs it. It's just a matter of how are we going to, because we've asked for this last 6 years that I'm aware of, how are we going to get it off to move it ahead?
Ms. Zums would like to weigh in.
Thank you. It goes back to your prior question and this, and I would say just as much as we may want to use lots of logic and analytics for how the legislature is going to make their decision on bonding, it doesn't generally happen quite that way. We always would want to try to get all three of our projects funded. However, having some sort of order for them is important. And if something has come in the past and it is urgent for the airport, they don't expect us to continue to change the order. It's unsettling for our legislative delegation or anyone's legislative delegation when things start to change order when they've already seen it before. I will say that part of the thought process on the sewering bonding project is that there are many other cities that receive varying amounts of local government aid, have very different structures, and all 857 of them, whether they receive a dime of LGA or are very, very reliant on LGA, have really different impacts if you are working on the formula. So what our goal has been is to talk about being the metro, regional metro center, and that we have needs that are as much or more than Minneapolis and St. Paul and Duluth, and that among those needs are things that they have the ability to think about their local government aid and how they fund different projects. We don't have that. It's likely an uphill battle with 800 some cities really being reliant on the aid portion of local government aid. But that doesn't mean that we shouldn't put our best foot forward and be really strategic about how we tell our story about the different things that we have to fund, get to have, but also have to fund as a regional metro center, standing alone without having a Met Council and other different taxing jurisdictions taking on things that make our budget larger than St. Paul's, because they don't do all of their services directly. Some of the services that we provide within our budget are provided by the Met Council up in the cities. So yes to all of your points, and changing the order of the projects while it's up to the common council is something that would likely be, could potentially make it less likely that you would get your projects funded.
Well, in the past, when we've had our LGA discussions, you know, we have RPU, we have an international airport, we have a bus system, we have a sewer plant, we have a water plant, we have our own planning and zoning, we have our own library, which the metro area does not have. And so that puts us at a disadvantage. So the need is there. It's just that we've not been successful. So I'm looking for a little different strategy to get to where we need to get. And if you think this is going to work, this is wonderful.
I think this is a good strategy, and our goal would be to get all three.
Well, I don't think our strategy in the past has been bad. I just think this is a different strategy, and I appreciate it.
Thank you. Councilmember Bransford.
See if I can articulate my question. So I think I've heard that the order is in the order it's portrayed here because the state has already seen this list and it's on somebody's desk. And if we change it around now, because it says proposed, is it on somebody's desk? Is it in a committee already? This has been seen. So why would changing the order be a problem?
So I think if we just backtrack really briefly to last year where we did submit it into the state and it was on many people's desks, including all of the bonding committees in the House and Senate and our local delegation and as bills, the airport and the riverfront were projects that have already been previewed to all of those folks about the need, and they literally saw them. They walked on the Skyway and saw the need for the riverfront project and the airport.
So in previous years, a variant of this has been on their radar.
Right.
Okay. So do we feel like in this climate of, and I guess this pun intended, of sustainability push that having a solar array parking and EV charging station that's going to service an incredibly small fraction of individuals compared to sewer infrastructure that will help our housing push is seemingly to me odd. I mean, if this will get us the sewer infrastructure investments, great. But it's it's odd to me that we would put as our number one priority something that will service so few people.
And point of order, just a reminder that it's also about powering the airport buildings themselves through the solar.
Okay, so, but we are,
Most of it.
Yeah.
okay, I will pontificate later. This is questions.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Councilmember Wall.
I think that you've been very careful and kind with your language, Heather. Would it be fair to say that the order is possibly political expedience?
And feasibility?
I think we want to meet the moment of the legislature and
Another careful
harness the
statement.
momentum and interest that they've shown in housing and developing infrastructure is something that both the leaders of the GOP House and the GOP or the DFL House have both talked about as part of a bonding bill, if there were to be one. The governor has also talked about an infrastructure-focused bonding bill. And so we've really tried again to pair our needs with the potential momentum at the Capitol in the projects that we present.
And in our current climate, is it more likely that we would receive a $3 million grant than a $19 million grant?
I think $19 million would be very, very unlikely, but we would try to get as much as we can for the city. I do want to emphasize, yeah, I think it's the $17 million that's listed here as our ask is half of the entire total project. And it's phrased multiple times in the document that this project is feasible and it could be chunked out into planning dollars potentially to get us started further down the road of that project. It could be in just segments. There's other ways to break apart the project, which is often the second question that we get asked about our larger asks.
And maybe to get that on the on-ramp for a future year?
Absolutely.
In the same way that number 3, I think last year we asked for over 20 million, and now we've dialed it back to a planning grant with some hopes of getting that kind of money.
Exactly. We used the feedback we got from the discussions last year about that.
And so, reading legislators' concerns with the forecast, the 616 over the next two, but then a minus 5.4 or whatever it is for the next four. What is your forecast in terms of legislative appetite to really do almost anything?
I think it's very unclear. So I think your cautious tone is probably the one we should prepare for, but we want to, again, be at the table if there's opportunity that breaks through at the Capitol. But it's very unclear how the session will work from a procedural standpoint, let alone a policy outcomes standpoint.
Thank you.
Councilmember Keen?
Yeah, I kind of have questions, but I just want to more validate that I've been through this enough times that we're sort of talking sometimes, it's almost like this is a formula and we have to figure out the formula, but in fact, it's not set up that way at all. There's times we get involved in this and realize that, we're running into trouble with geothermal because of the private use and we have to change on the fly. It's my understanding going into this that we went into this way with the idea that we have the best chance, and some of it underneath the words here is that this has been in front of the state, the bonding committee before. The fact is sewer infrastructure is rarely a bonding kind of thing because it's like a fire department. The state says that's on you as your local community and your ratepayer should be paying that. So there is a little bit of a stretch here. There's good logic that we have that it's been done in bigger cities, but there's some risk with it. And based on that is how we sort of position these things to get into the subject of sewer infrastructure.
Getting to your question.
Yeah, I'm trying to validate if I'm thinking about this right. And I think I'm saying that that's why we have it as a second. It's not something that we think is going to be consistent or readily accepted at St. Paul.
Yeah, I think Administrator Zelms put it well, but another way to say it is there's a science and art to the things that we present at the Capitol. We're asking essentially for you all to approve kind of the starting gate position, and then we would adapt the strategy based on the dynamics and reaction that we get at the Capitol.
So as we adopt these in December, we bring in council members in January, February, the session gets going. If there is sort of a change of heart in that, can we adjust?
So I think indirectly, yes, because at the end of the day, I don't have a state election certificate. No one in this room does. And so it's going to be up to the legislators and the committee chairs to decide what kinds of projects they're funding in their bonding bill overall, what the size of the bonding bill is. So those kind of things are decided further out.
Right, but my question is that if that seemed to be the direction they were going, because I know before the riverfront really didn't fit the direction they were going because it was infrastructure of like water for the outstate areas, water treatment, things like that, that we can make adjustments through our legislative work and also through our legislators from the area.
And I think that's where we're really clear about the ranked order that the council has approved is always part of the sentence that I say. We have council adopted priorities. Here's our preference for the rank. And at the end of the day, our legislators are the ones who write the bills. We definitely advocate and provide information to them to help them see our position. But at the end of the day, the committee chairs are the ones that, and the committee members and our own legislators are the ones that are really kind of carrying the football to the next yard line.
Thank you.
Ms. Zelms?
Council President, Councilmember Keen, maybe said simply, if a bunch of legislators said, we really want to fund your sewer project and we want to give you $20 million, that would become number one very quickly.
I don't mean to make light of it, but the fact is
It's
that
real.
is how this works. It does flow that way. If things change, we're involved so that we change with it.
And I think the variety of projects, as you saw, so we've got kind of some that are more pinned on a greenhouse gas emission, climate focus off the bat. All of these have that related to it, but others relate to housing or sewer, basic services that cities need. And then the other one is revitalizing a downtown, providing economic vitality. There's lots of different angles and ways that we can message all of these depending on the interest of the committee chairs.
Sort of building on that, I had a question about number one and knowing that part of it is coming from our federal requests. So similarly, I would imagine as we learn more about the new administration, we would adapt for seeking funding to support that match.
Correct. Yeah, the airport's been really great about utilizing their resources and our own grant writing team to look at not just FAA grants, but also Department of Energy grants and thinking about other federal related funding mechanisms to provide that local, the non-state match part of the project.
Thanks for that. Councilmember Dennis?
All right, thank you. So everyone on the council received an email from the city attorney. So I am going to be very careful with all of my words so that I do not break any of the violated words that are prohibited upon council members from saying. So I'm going to be very careful so I'm not kicked out again for using words that are in the English language that we're prohibited from using, which if you want to, you can definitely look up that email and see what First Amendment violations have occurred. I would like to ask the questions about, a lot of the questions were addressed, but the ranking of this order, I think, is a serious issue. If we look at our principles, priorities, principles, what we are supposed to base every decision on council on, residents who I have talked to, many of them, vast majority of them, do not use the local airport, but drive up to the cities and would like to see the electric power stations be closer in town where people can utilize them, or having, I mean, I'm all about green energy and thinking that we need to promote a sustainable environment for the future. But I also feel that the airport, there is some underlying situations happening that is putting that at number one. If we talk about urgency, I think housing is a crisis here in our city. We talk about, obviously, I voted against the property tax increase last
Councilmember
week.
Dennis, do you have a question about the
Yep,
legislative?
I just wanted to put on the record, I voted against the property tax increase, the only one on council who did so. But
Member
I
Dennis.
wanted to say that when we look at the amount of people impacted by number two versus the impact by number one, when we look at people who are going to residents who we support and serve impacted by having, you know, the sewer infrastructure built versus having electric power grids on a airport that very few that I have talked to utilize. What numbers would be when you're talking about urgency? I guess my definition is a little different on urgency. I think people keeping them in their homes, making sure that their homes are affordable is more of an urgency than helping big corporations have an airport that they can utilize to, send samples across the state, the world. So I want to say how many people are impacted from those two standpoints. When you talk about residents, if you're looking at, I'm number one versus number two. I really agree with Councilmember Palmer and others who have spoken on bringing that number two up to number one and saying we need to make sure that is met first. The residents' needs are met before those of corporations or other situations. So when you say urgency, I guess, could you define that a little bit more? Because that word urgency, I guess I think urgency, like was mentioned earlier, is defined not necessarily by the human need of urgency, but by perhaps the clout and the image of our city urgency. Could you define why that's number one in urgency versus number two?
Sure, absolutely. So if you turn to page 4 of the document that has all the priorities listed, one of my favorite images, because it shows the need and the urgency, is the current state of the parking lot at the airport. And I know most of you have been and experienced it. It's not a smooth experience for those walking from the parking lot into the gate, let alone if you use a mobility assisted device or have wheelchair that you use. And so part of our goal here is to improve the parking lot experience for the guests that use it. And the airport did provide numbers that 168,000 passengers annually use the airport. So that's where we have focused the urgency based on their own capital planning and what they hope to do as far as paying for the replacement of the parking lot and the need there.
So it's, when you talk about people who, okay, so the urgency is the parking lot versus maybe the people who would be impacted by having more affordable, more accessible, all of this, the need of sewers is a basic societal need from back in the Roman era, we need sewer systems that are safe and functioning to have society the basis and foundation of. So I guess I just want to say I differ from the need of the definition of urgency. I think very strongly that we should reevaluate the ranking order of these priorities. Thank you.
Councilmember Kirkpatrick?
Thank you. Understanding the new legislative climate that's coming up, you had suggested, or it had been stated earlier this evening, perhaps not by you, Ms. Corcoran, but there was a maybe not such a big idea to change our formula. So if we have these in the priority that they are of 1, 2, and 3 in the ranked order,
And again, these are bonding priorities, so these are not where the legislative formula, LGA formula would go.
right, but understanding that thinking, that mindset of maybe where that money would go, why perhaps we wouldn't want to fund Rochester with the infrastructure and with the economic drivers that we have here. Might not it be prudent to put that riverfront development along with the airport solar array? Only because I hear you significantly talking about greenhouse gas emissions. The amount of housing that would come from the riverfront redevelopment planning will save a ton of greenhouse gas emissions from people commuting into downtown every day. So is that possible to suggest that those two can be ranked together? It's simply $4 million.
I think we think of all three of them as our high priorities. I think at the end of the day, there's usually a list and you can't have two number ones if that's kind of what you were asking. But understand the discussion and noted.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Bransford?
Is there any real material difference between, I mean, like I could throw a dart at a dartboard and rank them that way? I mean, is there going to be any real difference when it gets up to St. Paul? They have line item veto, right? So like these are our three highest priorities, but they can grant one and not the others,
Well,
right? Or does it go up as a package and we get all three?
well,
They're
would the
individually added
legislators-
to a bill.
Yeah. So it depends which our legislative delegation is willing to take on to write into bills.
Okay. So in order to get us past the finish line, if we have to play politics, that's what we have to do. But I think that sends a really bad message to the city. But I mean, if that's the game we have to play to get us across the finish line, I guess that's the game we play. But I was just curious. So somebody has to champion all of these and get them into a bill.
Yep, and that's why we have had such great partnership with our local legislative delegation, and they've bipartisanly supported our projects and tried to, again, it's kind of a game of yards or inches
Yep.
sometimes, and
Yep.
this is the first step. The next step is getting a bill introduced by our local legislators ideally. The next step is having it heard in the bonding committees. The next step is having it considered by the bonding committee chairs when they put together their bills. And then those chairs have to come to agreement between the House and Senate. And then that has to not only receive just a simple majority of votes to get through the bonding process, but it has to be a super majority, 3/5. So it has to have minority support as well. So it's a long, long road to the bonding success train. That's why 2023 was such a remarkable year in so many ways to have nearly, I think it was literally all of our projects were included in the master final bill. And that is extremely rare.
Oh, that's great. Well,
Maybe something I'm hearing from my colleagues is in how you're thinking about it. The word isn't importance in how we're ranking these. It's related to and it's not even necessarily impact. It's really related to feasibility and how we're framing up these priorities to be most successful this year and in future years.
you mean the funding is to get the funding is most successful?
Yeah, but even to get things moving through and exposed in a different way than they have been in previous years, so.
Yep. Well, politics is the art of the possible, yes?
Mhm. All right, let's get a motion, or do you have another question?
I do, thank you. Has it been at all discussed, understandably, linking the solar panels up with the reconstruction of the parking lot makes sense, but there is a lot of land at the airport. And considering the transmission line is so small with the area that's available on the grassy areas, why is this considered urgent to put these solar panels on top of the blacktop versus just 300 feet away on a grassy area that won't obstruct the view
Because it's
of the tower?
multi-purpose and providing shelter and cover for parking as well.
I understand that there's also plowing issues that may come about with the snow cover and ice because there's no snow melt happening with the sun because you're blocking a surface. So there's pros and cons for that. But I was just curious if it had been at all discussed. You know, I hear this urgency for the reconstruction. It has to go in now, but certainly plenty of other areas that won't obstruct the tower's view of either runway.
Yeah, I'd probably have to phone a friend, RRPU folks over there, but, you know, to see if just other sites in general in the city are considerable for future solar uses is probably a separate side conversation that I don't know if I've been a part of. I don't know if Tim wants to say anything else about the airport property as feasibility.
Maybe
or
the
Allison.
friend can talk about the airport. There are a lot of unique requirements for utilizing the federally funded land at the airport. So even though there's a lot of open land, there are some very specific requirements in flight path and sightline. So those are things that I don't know that all of that land would actually be available for that. Also, running the electric all the way through that to the airport could be really challenging. I believe this actually reduces a significant amount of the load for the terminal.
Half.
It's not an insignificant amount. And being able, there's also a lot of rules for how you can interconnect with solar, as referenced by Ms. Corcoran. So there's, the reason really is that it is the connection point, also trying to make it a better experience for those coming and going from the airport, from the perspective of being able to have a little bit of relief from snow and rain and those types of things at the airport. But just because there's a lot of land there does not mean that all of it could be this, because some of those are requirements within our airport master plan, airport layout plan that would
Understandable,
have
the
to meet
FAA has
FAA
it.
requirements.
Yeah, thank you.
Councilmember Dennis?
So I hear it's more of a convenience of people who are able to economically afford to fly out of a more expensive airport, which is statistically our airport versus the Minneapolis, will have their vehicles shaded and more convenient for them. I think that the idea of convenience should not go above and surpass the need for basic human survival of the sewer system. So again, I'd like to say the ranking order. I won't be
Okay,
here next year,
let's get a
but
motion on the table.
I have
before we
I have a question about the LGA. The resident who came first, I want to make sure I throw this back out there. People who speak in open comment took the time to come and speak, and I think their voices and concerns should be amplified. But when the first speaker came to talk about the statement from the council, do you think on an LGA conversation, that is something that we should do as a council to bring forward a more, I think she mentioned, Ms. LaForge said, the statement should be more forceful from those who hold election certificates on the city council to advocate for more LGA funds. Is that something that you also recommend from what we heard just earlier tonight?
I think we have to be thoughtful as a city and about the perceptions, whether they be true or untrue, about Rochester and our abilities up at the Capitol. I think something else to think about is local government aids sometimes gets used as a proxy to just mean more assistance to a city to do what they would like or need to do with the funding. And so that's why I use the example of public safety aid, because public safety funding is often what local government aid gets used for. And so if there's interest at the Capitol to provide certain cities targeted aid for certain things where we have alignment and need, that's perhaps another way, or potentially a better, more fruitful way to look at getting assistance from the state for our needs. And I think I had another thing, but I have lost it. I apologize.
Thank you.
Councilmember Keen.
I'd like to make a two-part motion just to get a motion on the table here. Number one is adopt the 2025 City of Rochester legislative priorities. And number two, adopt the resolution supporting the city's state capital investment our bonding priorities in the ranked order of airport solar, number 2, sewer infrastructure, and number 3, riverfront redevelopment planning.
Second.
Yeah, again, a couple things. I mean, when you have a 7-person body, there is different ways to prioritize these things. But I want to make a couple of points here. You know, I've been doing the legislative priorities for a while, and that idea of, you know, getting as much as you can at some level is good, but you also want to be listening to the voices that are there. You know, in this discussion here, I think it's important to realize this city and the city taxpayers own an airport. And the more we can do to make it a viable option is doing good for our taxpayers. So I want to make sure that this idea of investing in with the airport is a way of like taking care of the elites among the city. I don't picture it that way. I worry that if the airport isn't successful, the taxpayers of the city of Rochester are going to have to step up, and I don't want to see that happen. Number 2, the sewer infrastructure. This, again, without getting into too much here, that this is a very different kind of ask than what bonding has been in the past. This is something that, generally speaking, ratepayers pay for sewer extensions. This isn't something where we're saying we're going to get this money and reduce everyone's sewer cost in the city of Rochester. What we're going to do is try to bring another 1,000 acres, like have sewer capability at a reduced cost, but it's still going to be a big cost. This is a cost sharing thing. So and that's going to be a very different lift for the legislators to look at and say, the city of Nisswa pays its own sewer rates. Why would we help Rochester pay theirs? So there's a big lift here, and it might end up happening, as Councilmember Palmer puts out, because of the housing opportunities it creates. So, but it's not something that's clearly going to be a winner. As far as the riverfront redevelopment, I like this still being in the list and being a planning thing, but this got a very poor introduction when it went to the legislature before. There was a lot of view of that, of like, this public realm stuff isn't in favor right now, and it did not get much of a result. So I like the way we're carrying these. I'm also looking at the dollar amounts, and I like the idea that the way this works, that if there's a big thing towards housing and this would get on, I think between Ms. Cochran being up there and the people on the council that work with the legislators, I think we'd be able to switch that. So I'd like to be able to support the staff recommendations tonight, as opposed to just trying to reorder. But I think there is that idea that these are all they're all high priorities. It's just, this is what the council would say is their priorities, which we think have the most chance of melding with the state legislature.
All right, other discussion? Councilmember Wall?
From some of the discussion on the dais, it seems like the solar array has been reduced to convenient parking and a few EV chargers, when the prime benefit for me is the possible allowance for the entire airport terminal electrical use to be offset by the solar energy generated.
By 50%.
By 50, I mean, that's a huge benefit, and that's, RPU's been investing in those kinds of resources for a long time. That just seems like that stands with our council principles.
30 years.
Please.
Thank you, Clerk. Councilmember Palmer.
So you've followed what people have asked for in the past. And did I hear you correctly that sewer was something that they have funded in the past?
Correct, yeah. Smaller cities are a good example, actually, of using kind of a existing competitive process through the state's Public Facilities Authority for asking for funding for either their wastewater plants or the pipes themselves. So that's one route to get funded, and that pot of money is funded through the bonding bill. So I guess in some ways it gets conflated as bonding projects. Our request would likely use up a lot of that kind of regular route of funding. And so we're asking for sort of our own separate lane in a lot of ways, because we are one of the fastest growing communities in the state. We're providing a lot to the state's economic engine. We have a lot of need, a lot of opportunity, a lot of land that could be untapped or infilled with this investment. And so we're going to try to make a unique case for the need and the benefits to the state and the region to get at the housing crunch that everyone is experiencing with this project. So it's been done. I would say it's almost not a talked about part of the bonding bill, because it's run through this state agency, and the state agency receives a pot of funding, and then it awards things out on a competitive basis based on the rates that people pay, whether that community is able to shoulder the entire cost of the project or not, and other factors about the age of the system and contaminants and other things that factor into the needs. So we're a bit of a unique case, but that's kind of our entire case at the Capitol, is that Rochester is very unique. Only city over 100,000 in greater Minnesota, growing, third biggest city, not having a regional governance structure, the taxing ability, all those kind of things.
And so the ask is for the trunk line and bottlenecks that are there now. Is that not correct? Not the sewer plant?
Correct. Yep. We have the sewer plant already.
And if I remember correctly, this year is a budget year and then the following year is a bonding year? Is that?
That's kind of the nomenclature. I would say it's almost every year is a bonding year and every year is not a bonding year in some ways, because in the past couple cycles, we've gone 3 years without a bonding year, or on the third year, then there's a bonding bill. So the last bonding bills were in 2020 and 2023. And now we're entering 2025. So it's a bit of the pattern has kind of got off the cadence, but the official bonding year is basically because the Minnesota Management and Budget Agency asks you for a lot more information on bonding year cycles. And you have to provide that. And basically how the legislature has navigated that kind of every year is a bonding year lately is to essentially ask for that similar information, but you submit it directly to a committee chair instead of an agency. So again, every year is sort of an opportunity for a bonding bill.
Thank you.
Councilmember Bransford.
So what Norm said sort of resonated with me a little bit in terms of this is a municipal airport that we as taxpayers pay for. And if we reduce the energy consumption costs to the city, we reduce the amount of tax burden or exposure. Okay. Do we have a dollar amount on what that would translate into, or? Sorry.
Councilmember Bransford, Council President, this 2025 year, I believe the cost for the airport is this is not the total cost for the airport, but a very small amount comes from the tax levy, which is about $625,000 that pays for utilities and customs. So I would say at customs is probably about 150 to 200,000 of that. It's significant. It's hundreds of thousands of dollars.
That would be saved. Yep. Okay, great. Thank you.
All right, Councilmember Dennis.
All right, thank you. I just want to say, Ms. Kirkland, it's been just a blessing and honor to work with you, being at the Capitol, helping lobby for funding and your work you have done. You connect to legislators, and I think that authentic, passionate, amazing connection you have with people is a huge asset to our city. So I just want to say thank you for all the work you do. So this kind of things I'm really wanting to say is directed toward this particular issue, which you have been wonderful to work with any issue that's being brought up that is for the best needs of Rochester. So, but I just wanted to, say that I'm not going to go back into my past thoughts. I have made it very clear I don't think Rochester should be funding Mayo Clinic's airport. I think the residents of Rochester should not be footing the bill for
Point of order, the city of Rochester owns the international airport. Mayo Clinic does not own the airport.
But, okay, they don't own it, but it is their airport. A lot of residents, that is what the people perceive as the reason that we have an airport is because of the samples and different medical stuff that's coming in, and not just the patients and visitors, because of the clinic. So if you walk into the airport, it's all Mayo, everything. So my correction, it's not a Mayo Clinic airport, but the perception from the people that I represent, it is. So I wanted to say that is my view, and I've made that clear in past council meetings, so I will not go back and talk about how I think that's an injustice to residents who are struggling to put their tax dollars toward this airport. But I do feel what's at hand right here is a priority ranking, and I hear this motion on the table, so I would like to make an amendment to change the list of priorities to put the airport item at number 3 and move item of the sewer systems up to number 1, followed by the riverfront. I'm not wording that exactly right, like technical, but I would like to make a motion to change the ranking to put our priority of our city to get more
Okay.
funding for
We got
the
your
sewer systems.
order, sewer, river, airport.
Thank you.
Is there a second? All right, there's no second. So is there another comment you wanted to make?
Well, that I am obviously I'm going to vote for getting funding for our city, so I'm going to vote for trying to get as much as we can for our city of Rochester. But for the record, I do not believe that the order is what we should be prioritizing. I am going to vote so that the record looks like that there is more support than there is, but my support is to have changed the priorities to put residents before corporations. Thank you.
Well, Ms. Corcoran, thank you so much for your leadership and working with our state and our legislators to make sure that our voice is heard along with our legislative lobbying partners. I think it's really exciting that we've added the sewer priority. I know it's taken a few years of discussion and trying to figure out whether this might be a feasible approach to bring this forward. So I sure hope with our next council, there's some good momentum and it is feasible to consider this, if not this year, in future years. Tying it to housing is really smart. And I know that we just passed our sales tax, which also included housing. So again, I know that you're thinking really intentionally about how to position this so it is well received and considered, but I also know that there are some challenges and so I hear what everybody's saying, but I also appreciate the comments around if we let the airport slide and if we aren't investing, that will have a direct impact on the tax levy because right now we are doing a great job at running the airport and staying in the black, but that is a delicate balance and offsetting that will land on taxpayers in our community. So I think that that needs to continue to be a priority and continue to be an investment. But I sure hope that the sewer gets some momentum behind it as well. And Riverfront, just as a long-term planning, I hope that the next council gets to see that become a reality. That is so exciting to think of the river corridor transformation in this community and how much housing downtown that can contribute to our downtown economy, support additional amenities and resources coming to downtown as we have more people living and working downtown, reduce our greenhouse gases. There's so many ties to our priorities as a council. So I hope we get that moving forward, but otherwise we'll figure out other ways to fund that work. Any other comments? All right, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say nay. Motion carries. Thank you. Yeah, let's go ahead and take a break until 7:50.
Mrs. Cochran.
Recording stopped. Recording in progress.
Back, everyone. We're moving on to item H2, which was previously F12. This is the city owner contract for public improvements. It's a long title, but it's for public improvements. And Councilmember Palmer is going to tell us more about why he pulled it and what's in this item.
First, I'm going to make a motion to approve both actions requested, number 1 and number 2.
I'll second.
Thank you.
Okay, you have the floor.
Okay. So my question became, and it kind of clarified, I really appreciate his coming, Tim, for his answers and everything. But Public Works, I have a couple questions on. On your map, it looks like you're doing a pedestrian subway all the way up from Center Street, all the way up to 3rd Street Southwest. Now you look at the map, it looks like you're not doing a pedestrian tunnel, but you're doing some electrical banks across 2nd Street Southwest? Mike?
No.
Can't hear you now.
Is this one working?
Yes.
Okay. I'll sit here. Yep. President, members of the council, yes, that's correct. When you zoom in on the mapping, it's not as easy in the packet, but I sent you a copy of the plans, the PDF we have of the approved plans. The pedestrian tunnel is only running from the future Osmond Hospital site north to the former Lourdes site, which will be a logistics facility for Mayo. So it's 1st Street Southwest to just north of Center Street. The additional line work, if you zoom in and try to read the text in the exhibit, that's for electrical duct bank. It's enabling work for Mayo as they develop the power generation for their future campus downtown. So the line work you see that crosses 2nd Street is actually just the electrical duct banks.
So are we crossing 2nd Street just once? I mean, in the future, is this going to get ripped up again, or are we doing this duct bank once?
This portion of the duct bank will go in and be permanent, and it'll be a one-time project.
But we don't see crossings at 6th Avenue and not crossing 2nd Street again after this project is done?
Not at 6th Avenue. The plan would be to get it all done and reconstructed, and it's in place for the long term.
And my understanding is that you will have it done before the BRT goes through?
Yeah, that's all part of our team's coordination. Cindy, Steve, everyone's working together weekly with the Mayo team and their consultants as we think through what does construction look like in the downtown core for the next 3 to 5 years. And so we're working very closely to develop. We have some GIS teammates that are putting together some graphics that we can step through phase by phase, month by month, essentially, to see what those impacts are, so that again, construction is a huge inconvenience, like we say with any project. How do we make it as least inconvenient as possible?
So let's go just to the pedestrian tunnel now. So that's going to go just to the north of Center Street, and it's going to run up to 1st Street. Now, it looks like it tees off on 1st Street both sides and on Center Street on both sides. Am I misreading that?
There are additional tunnels, and I don't have that one memorized. It's possible that it's connecting into whether it's pedestrian or they also have utility tunnels that are part of this project as well.
So is this going to be a pedestrian and a utility tunnel?
Correct.
So when we did that at the Jacobson building, that was about 40 feet deep. Are you anticipating that being about 40 feet deep?
If I remember right, this one, I think it's in the 28-foot range. So not quite as deep, but it's deep. It's stacked, yes.
Okay. And so obviously we're not doing one side and doing the other side. We're closing the whole road for a long period of time?
Correct. And the public improvements as part of this project, Mayo's paying for all of that work because of the disruption, not only to the roadway, but our sewer and water and storm sewer utility.
Okay. And my only reason for pulling it was looking at the map, it was confusing to me, so it's going to be confusing to other people, and how we got both set up at the same time. It would have been a little bit clearer to have the duct bank separate from that. So that's just my 2 cents.
That's fair, and I apologize for any confusion. The way it
comes to us is how Mayo's worked with their contractor and the project that they're delivering, and this is the first phase of a continued build out. This one's called B1. In the future, you're going to see a B2 and a B3 come before the council for approval.
I appreciate your answers and I support whatever you're doing on this, so thank you.
Thank you.
Any other discussion on this item? All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
All opposed say nay. Motion carries. All right, Mr. Yetzer's back in the room, and Councilmember Palmer, you also pulled H3, which was F21, and this is the item that has been added tonight to the agenda. Memorandum opposing Olmsted County General Land Use Plan text amendment, eliminating city requirements to approve county land use plan amendments within urban service area. Would you like Mr. Yetzer to start it off, or?
I'll do a motion first.
Okay,
I'll make a motion to approve the action requested.
second.
Okay. So we've been working on this for a long period of time, and this is a huge influence on what's happening to Rochester. When I first got involved with it, I had neighbors and friends that I knew for a long time come to me and say that the city can't expand into our property for 25 years. I sat and watched the staff work with these people, and they said that we can get sewer to them in 2 years, and we've worked with them and we've resolved that issue. I was proud that the staff was willing to work with people, and it was kind of in their idea to do that. The second one is another piece of property, same kind of scenario. And after the staff and county commissioner has sat in on some of that discussion, both have been resolved and both are working in the city. The reason this is important is that if these two properties did not stay in the city, urban service area, we'd lose about 500 acres of developable area and sewer capacity to the west. So, Mr. Yetzer, I've kind of talked about it a little bit. Can you give me some more details on this?
Yeah, thanks, Councilmember Palmer, members of City Council, Ryan Yetzer, City Administration. The resolution before you kind of suggests 4 different things. The first is the delegation of authority, and that's requesting that the county delegate that authority to the applicable city to review those requests of land use just outside of city limits. As a reminder, this was all covered in the study session a couple weeks back. The second is to have a clear process. I think this was a great idea by the county to have clarity around how property owners can have this question asked and answered. And so appreciate their thoughts on that, and we would agree with that. You will notice there are 2 sets of language in the packet. One is what we anticipate their proposed language to be, and one is our suggested language. And one of the key differences among the 2 is that we differentiate the process between land that's in a city's urban service area and land that is not in a city's urban service area. And so I do want to note that in process clarity as well. The third is evaluation criteria. It remains unclear if the county is proposing to have evaluation criteria baked right into their land use plan or not. We strongly feel that needs to be included in the text, not just in a staff report. Similar to the way we do our land use plan amendments, we have criteria written right into our comprehensive plan, and we would encourage them to do the same so that we can ensure that these things are being reviewed consistently for the foreseeable future. And then lastly is to have a continued collaborative effort around this. Through some recent conversations that myself and colleagues have had, it remains clear that there is confusion around this item, both within our conversations as well as some that I've had with townships and not understanding exactly what is moving forward. And so perhaps maybe what is needed is some more time to talk through this issue. So those are the 4 things that the resolution asks that is before you tonight. We have also attached a letter that summarizes what was before you on August 5th that you folks approved. It's just a more concise version of that. Highlighting our 3 main concerns with this issue. The first being the ability to produce affordable housing. There's an item on your EDA agenda that would not come to fruition, I fear, if this amendment moves forward. The second is environmental sustainability, and then the third is infrastructure planning. And so between those 3 items, removing this tool from our toolbox is concerning. and would dramatically change the way that we are able to prepare for infrastructure development. So that's my introduction to the topic. Happy to answer any questions you folks have or hear feedback.
Thank you, Mr. Yetzer. Councilmember Keen and then Bransford.
Yeah, again, I fully support this memorandum tonight and this idea of getting more attention to this issue before things are changed and we have to find our way back. When I first heard about these proposed changes, they were portrayed as private property rights concerns, and I tried to get my head around that. But then the next thing is they were really autonomy or control for the townships. And more recently, I've discovered that many of the township supervisors are not even aware of these changes are going forward. And the changes are being driven by housing developers who seem to be frustrated with the rules that the city has in place to try to protect city taxpayers as we do these sort of annexations and as we take services out to the urban service area. I've had county commissioners speculate that these changes will drive the city to develop the outskirts of our city quicker. And from my perspective, it'll drive the exact opposite behavior by this council, that we will be much more worried about making investments without the surety of which property would come into the city and take advantage of those services. Here's another difficult thing when I'm looking at this. Olmsted County Commissioners all represent parts of the city of Rochester, and 4 of the 7 commissioners are totally represent people who live in the city of Rochester. Over 70% of the population of the county lives in Rochester. And yet we have county commissioners voting against the best interests of the taxpayers of the city of Rochester. I think it does go towards the point that I don't think we really understand what's happening here, or not everybody does, and maybe there's some education still on the city side. Planning for things like housing and transportation require long lead times. These are things that when I came into this job, it's really hard to deal with. Plans that lead up to 2050 and plans that say this will happen after 2050. These are long lead time things, and many people, depending on what kind of job they're in and what kind of their world, these kind of things seem otherworldly to be talking about 25 and 35 years out. But the fact is, good urban planning and even suburban development planning requires a consistency and requires that sort of lead times. So I hope this memorandum will, and this idea that the county and city will find a better way to make sure that as we do this urban service area and try to maintain it and manage it, that we do it efficiently for both city taxpayers, but also for the right sort of edge development over the years to come.
That was really thoughtfully said. Thank you, Councilmember Keen. Councilmember Bransford.
Yeah, I might echo a little bit of what you said, but I wrote down, and I'm just gonna sort of read what I wrote, but page 5 of the county's general land use plan clearly states that urban service areas include cities and their adjacent areas intended to be added to the cities over the next 25 to 50 years. The purpose of mutual planning and careful development of the urban service area is to ensure that even development on the fringes of the urban service area will incur a lower cost for public services and infrastructure. The city has made hundreds of millions of dollars of infrastructure investment to prepare to allow for housing development and other municipal services in the adjacent growth areas of the city. The uncertainty presented in the face of the need for significant housing growth and additional infrastructure investments stands to halt our progress and impact housing affordability, a la what Mr. Keen had just sort of said. I will echo Mr. Keen in this, that it's unsettling that the county board doesn't seem to appreciate that these ongoing upfront investments costing city tax and ratepayers millions cannot continue if the city cannot absolutely ensure it is the master of its destiny, can use those millions in investment to support edge growth. Remember, this is an all of the above approach to housing. And if our hands get tied, that significantly hurts our ability to do all of the above. So I wholeheartedly support this memorandum, and I hope that our stern words are taken to heart, and that we can come back to the table and have a good discussion about planning together, so that we do this in a way that's mutually beneficial for the county and the city.
Thank you, Councilmember Bransford. I think we talked about this quite a bit previously, and I've said my piece, but I'm certainly pleased that to sign the letter on behalf of the council that's going to the county. Councilmember Kirkpatrick.
Thank you. This may seem a little off topic, but it's not meant to be. I'm just coming in maybe, sideways with this. Are there some sort of ramifications for the county or looking forward when a city or the county seat becomes so large within a county? There's a shift in the dynamics that happen? I don't know how to word what I'm asking, but do you understand what I'm getting at? This is maybe more of a legal question. Maybe a different way to look at it is, are you aware of how many other counties out of the 87 in our state have such a significant portion of the county taken up by one city?
Off the top of my head, I'm not aware of another county that has the same situation as the city of Rochester. In one city, there are certainly counties that, multiple cities are that way, yeah.
Mhm. So is this changing the, I don't even know the words to ask about this. I wish somebody could extrapolate what I'm getting at. Not necessarily the power structure, because that's not where I'm coming from, but funding, the ramifications for what we might do here versus what the county is capable of doing when a city becomes so large within a county. Is anybody looked at that or wondered about that, or is it not necessary?
Ms. Elms.
I'm gonna try this. Councilmember Kirkpatrick, Council President. I don't want to put words in your mouth. I think it is unique because we are large and we are growing, both geographically and with infill, right? So there are not many cities in Minnesota that have this amount of growth, and also many cities have housing needs, but the magnitude of needs that we have are unique. We also provide all of the utilities. So that's not necessarily atypical, especially in outstate Minnesota. Almost all the cities provide sewer, and most provide water. A few provide the electric utility. Ours is the largest municipal electric utility. I think the difference is we have been over time continuously investing in the sewer and the infrastructure because we have to be cautious about our growth. We want to grow, and yet we have growth management and economic vibrancy as the strategic priority, right? So being really thoughtful about how and where, and that those investments are happening in a way where we believe there will likely be additional reasonable growth for residential is probably unprecedented based on the size and scope and nature. And then, of course, being within Olmsted County and being the third largest city by population, larger than 11 counties population-wise, that is unusual. And I think the challenge is there are also many townships in Olmsted County, and they have a very different type of growth. So there's also that third governmental entity that becomes involved when we're talking about the urban service area. And that's not necessarily as common for some cities to have 4 different townships and just the size and scope of the geography here.
Mhm. Thank you. Well, I guess having grace as we move through this and the necessities that we have to do what we need to do for our residents, businesses, the environment, visitors, patients, understanding our township and county partners as we move forward. But I think this memorandum is necessary, and yeah, happy to vote for this.
Councilmember Dennis.
All right, thank you. So over the last 4 years, there's been amazing projects and things that we have voted on. I drive my children to school by affordable housing complexes that have been built because of votes here on council, and what we do ripple through generations, and I think are incredibly important work. This work that all legislators do on all levels of government is, I think, some of the most important things that impact people's lives. However, when it comes to this item, I've heard it been said, it's okay, I'm going to quote the quote exactly the person who is a leader here in elected officials said, this is as big as it gets. This item right here before us is bigger than, in this elected official's view, the biggest item that we could possibly vote on, because it talks about whether or not we're going to box in our city, or whether or not we're going to continue to have a voice to veto and be able to say how our city grows. And this is going to impact not just our lives, our lifetimes, but hundreds of years into the future. So this vote here will determine what the city will look like 200 years from now. And so putting it in that perspective, I mean, the affordable housing and all the amazing things that we have done on council, this is, it should not be minimized at all. I mean, people will have a home over their heads, their roof over their heads. They will have, their lives will be impacted because of our votes on almost, every issue we have determines the future of very incredible amount of people's lives. But this one is incredibly important, and I am in complete support. I've always been in support of not taking voices away from residents in Rochester, and this allows the city council, who are their representatives, to be able to have a say in our growth of our city. So I just want to echo a lot of things said, but just say that this is hands down an important thing to come across to all county commissioners, all legislators, that we need to make sure that people who live in the city have a voice on how their city grows and not be boxed in by other agendas. So I am in support, and just want to say, yes, we should sign our name and put a little explanation point on the end of it. Thank you.
Let's go ahead and vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Yetzer and Mr. Palmer. All right, we have a couple ordinance readings, one first reading, one second reading. Mr. Spindler-Craig, go ahead when you're ready.
Thank you, Madam President. There is one first reading, J1. I would note that the packet includes the full recitation, which includes amendments to the UDC, many of which are detailed and small, so that full recitation is in the packet. The summary for J1, though, is a text amendment amending various areas of the Unified Development Code. Moving on to the second reading, item K1, an ordinance amending sections 2-18-1 and 2-18-4 of Chapter 2-18 of Title II of the Rochester Code of Ordinances relating to Downtown Special Service District.
I'll move approval.
Second.
All right, Councilmember Keen, you have the floor.
No, nothing to add. Thank you.
Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Spindler-Craig. All right, for other business tonight, I'd invite a motion to recess the council meeting for a meeting of the Rochester Economic Development Authority.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. Motion carries. So I'll call to order the Rochester Economic Development Authority meeting for December 9th, 2024. We do have one item on our consent agenda. That is the minutes from September 9th.
Approval?
Okay.
Second.
All right. Any discussion, Councilmember Wall?
None.
Others? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Say nay. Motion carries. All right. We have a couple public hearings tonight. The first, I will invite Mr. Svenby up, and it is item 4A, establishing development district number 83 and tax increment financing district number 83-1 and entering into a development assistance agreement with West 80 Partners. Just note that this is the same process we use for our regular public hearings, and I will kick it over to Mr. Svenby to start us off.
Yep, this evening I have a very exciting project for you guys. Probably the first time in 20 years since we've had an application for TIF for a owner-occupied single-family development. So the city did receive a application from West 80 Partners, seeking TIF financing on 40 for sale homes within the Prairie Ridge development. And the Prairie Ridge development is about 301 total housing units, with 201 of those being for sale and about 100 units being rental. Earlier this year, the council did provide the developer about $4 million in funding that has been made available through the Economic Vitality Funding. So the council did grant that in July of this year. So tonight we are before you asking approval of a TIF district TIF plan and a development assistance agreement, and using the interloan fund to fund the TIF district at this point. Basically, it would be, we would provide the developer $20,000 per home that once the home is constructed and sold to a income qualified buyer. So in the case of a family of 2 or less individuals, that family has to meet the income requirements of 100% of the area median income. Families of 3 or more, that income restriction is 115% of the AMI. At that time, the house is sold, we would provide the developer the $20,000, and then we would take that funding from the Economic Vitality Funding, and then we would pay ourselves back over the years when they pay through tax increment financing. It's estimated that probably takes 7 to 8 years to pay back that total of $800,000, assuming that they find or are able to sell 40 homes to income qualified buyers. So this evening, we're asking you for adoption of the resolution which establishes the district, approves the TIF plan, approves the interloan fund, and approves the execution of the development assistance agreement. And the developer is here this evening.
All right, we'll get back to you after the public hearing. Would the developer or applicant like to speak? So please introduce yourself. You have up to 10 minutes.
Good evening, Council President Carlson, council members. I'm Jeff Brown. I'm with North Rock Real Estate, and I represent West 80 Partners. This is kind of the last leg of a project that we've worked long and hard with your staff, and I've been before you a number of times, but I'm really here just to answer any questions that you might have, and so let me know.
All right, we'll get back to you after
Thank
the
you.
public hearing. So I'll open the public hearing. Would anyone like to speak on this item? Okay, we'll close the public hearing. Are there questions for the applicant or staff? Councilmember Keen?
Yeah, just to staff, I just want to, every TIF district I've been involved with is the owner keeps ownership. And I'm just making sure I understand the logistics of a TIF district where it's being sold to somebody else who's going to be paying their taxes, but it's not a TIF thing that it's going back to them. This is tied to the Economic Vitality Fund, and it's the taxes that are being paid by other than the developer or will go back to repay the Economic Vitality Fund?
Correct. Yep. Yeah, so the homeowner will continue to pay their taxes on the property. The county will collect that increment for us on those lots that are in the TIF plan. That increment will come back to us, and then we'll pay ourselves back the $20,000 per home, per dwelling.
Okay, I'm trying to make sure I understand that the idea before was with tax increment financing, if someone didn't pay their taxes, there was no increment paid out. Is there any risk here that they won't refund the money to the Economic Vitality Fund that we had expected to?
We don't anticipate these property owners not paying their taxes on their dwellings. I mean, that is a risk to take, but we do have up to 25 years to collect that increment. So if for some reason someone doesn't pay their taxes and it goes into foreclosure and someone else buys it, we would have that up to 25 years.
Let me just say it a little differently. There's a little bit of a different sort of gymnastics going on here with how things get paid back. Am I right to be seeing that, or am I seeing something wrong?
Correct. Yeah, correct. We typically don't do an interloan fund. I mean, typically it's the increment that's being generated is going back to the developer. So if property taxes change or tax law changes and it collects less increment, that's less increment being paid to the developer.
Okay.
In this case, we're providing the funding up front, and then we're collecting those funds, and then we're paying ourselves back.
Okay, and when you say we're providing it up front, we're actually providing it when the home is being sold?
Correct, yep.
Okay.
Yep, and they have to document that, so we have it for our records. So if they don't find a home buyer for that dwelling, they wouldn't get
the increment.
$20,000. And the map before you are those 40 lots within development that are only eligible for the tax increment financing.
Okay, no, I'm comfortable with the protections for the finances, and I support the project.
Other questions? Right, or a motion?
I will make a two-part. I'd like to make a two-part motion to adopt the resolution establishing the tax increment financing district through the Economic Development District number 83 for tax increment financing district number 83-1, and part two, authorize the execution of the development assistance agreement with West 80 Partners LLC for tax increment financing district 83-1.
Second.
And lots of seconds. All right, Councilmember Keen?
Yeah, again, I do think this is a natural progression with here. I just wanted to make sure I got it correct, because the protection I've always watched for with tax increment financing, if for some reason taxes aren't paid, there's no increment back. And in this case, it's slightly different. There's a little risk, but it seems reasonable. And I like the controls that the increment is paid to the developer when the home is sold. So there's controls in place.
And plus it's a short duration and we should get that back within 6, 7, 8 years.
Very good.
So
thank you.
Any other discussion? Councilmember Kirkpatrick?
Although this is one of those developments that's out there in the suburbs, I don't normally
Support.
or appreciate, what's going on with them. I love the fact that this has rentals, it has purchasable units. I love the fact that it's the way we need to do developments where we have a mixture of folks living together. I appreciate that. And then, of course, the short term on the repayment of the TIF. So this is a win-win to me. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Motion carries. All right, moving on to 4B, and Mr. Johnson's making his way up here. 4B is establish Economic Development District number 82 and DMC Redevelopment Tax Increment Financing District number 82-1 for the Civic Center North lots, which we've talked a lot about in the last couple years. So glad to have you here. Go ahead when you're ready.
Thank you, Council President, Council members. Josh Johnson, City Administration. Another exciting project here. We have talked about it at length. We entered into an exclusive negotiation agreement with the developer of the site, Sherman and Associates, in November of 2022. I think we do have a good juxtaposition of the prior TIF district establishment and this one. So the request tonight is to establish the Economic Development District and the DMC Redevelopment Tax Increment Financing District. This is for the 8 city-owned parcels, typically referred to as the Civic Center North parcels. At this time, we are just approving the district. We'll be coming forward in the future with the actual development assistance agreement. So I just want to note that we're not committing any resources or committing any sale at this time. Those will come at a later date. So this is truly just setting up the TIF district. I will actually pause there and stand for questions.
All right, we will do the public hearing. Actually, is Sherman or is anyone here to speak to the
I do not
project?
believe we have a Sherman representative here today.
Okay, so we'll move right on to the public hearing. Would anyone like to speak on this item? Please introduce yourself and you have 5 minutes.
Yeah, Jeff Derby, and I just was wondering about these developments, the companies that are involved here, are they vetted history of, did any of these companies ever bury toxic stuff in the ground or any of that other stuff, or owned by Chinese Communist Party or anything like that?
We'll have staff respond. Thank you. All right, would anyone else like to speak? All right, Mr. Johnson.
Thank you.
Are you,
Councilmember.
are you closing the public hearing?
Sorry, I'm closing the public hearing. Mr. Johnson, we can ask questions, but if you would like to respond to that question, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, so Sherman Associates is a state business. I believe they're based out of Minneapolis, but they do a lot of work regionally. They're a very reputable company. Have a lot of good references for their capacity to develop in cities.
Thank you. Other questions for staff? All right, is there a motion?
I'll move to adopt a resolution establishing the TIF district through the approval of the EDA as District 82 and the DMC Redevelopment Tax Increment Financing District number 82-1.
Second.
Councilmember Keen, you have the floor.
Yeah, again, I've been a supporter of this project, although it is there is a fair amount of support from the city to try to get something like this built. There's also the risk right now that they still have a gap that they're trying to work to close for and I think it has to do with their energy plans. But that is the nature of developers' world. There's a lot of risk with what they're doing and they're working through it. And I think we're doing our part that we've committed to do to set up this district so that we're ready when we have to make our commitments.
Great. Any other discussion? Councilmember Wall?
Yeah, I guess with Mr. Keen, I'm very hopeful that the last gap will be conquered. A couple of months ago, they seemed to say, yep, that's going to happen this winter. The documents say, I think February, that maybe something is coming that will give the final okay. But it seems like we've talked about this and committed a lot to this particular project.
We absolutely want it moving forward, provide a lot of housing downtown. Councilmember Kirkpatrick.
Yep, just second everything that's been said. I'm really looking forward to this project. This is the type of project that we need a lot more of, and I'm hopeful that they will be able to swing this and bring it forward. Again, not excited that 250 plus parking spaces, some of the least expensive parking downtown, is being usurped with this project, but I understand developments have good and bad, and I'm really, really excited that this one is coming forward in this neighborhood and so close to downtown.
Thank you. Any other discussion? All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Motion carries. All right, we have one item under reports and recommendations today. I think Mr. Svenby is coming back up. This is the decertification of tax increment financing district number 33 and 39-1. So Town Hall Estates and Cascade Creek redevelopment project. Go ahead.
Brent Stumby, Community Development. With the TIF financing project, once the city has met its obligation or the length of the TIF district runs to the statutory limits, it's time to decertify the TIF district so we can notify the county to stop collecting the increment on the project. So in this case, we have TIF district number 33 and TIF district number 39 that need to be certified because the city's obligations have been met in regards to when we create the TIF district. So just looking for adoption of the resolutions in your packets.
All right, are there any questions for staff? Or a motion?
I'll make a two-part motion. Number one, adopt a resolution decertifying TIF District 33-1, and part two, adopt a resolution decertifying TIF District 39-1.
Second.
All right, Councilmember Keen, you have the floor.
Yeah, in some ways, it's kind of like good, if you think about it, when we're doing these TIF districts, this means we bring these new projects on and are not contributing to helping run our city. We're spending that money to bring them in. These things, when they decertify, it means now these projects are contributing.
Yeah.
But if you look closely, you'll see the old, they call it the old town hall, which has now gone into government ownership. So if you think about it, that never will go on the tax things. But again, we're seeing there's other ones that are lined up that'll come towards the that'll be going into the tax rolls here in the next couple of years. And these are things that, to me, I like tip my hat to past councils that those are projects that worked.
Right, and Old Town Hall will be contributing really meaningfully in other ways to for supportive housing. Absolutely. All right, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say nay. Motion carries. So that's it for our EDA meeting. I'd entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting of the EDA.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Okay, the EDA is adjourned, so I'll call back to order the meeting of the City Council and entertain a motion to adopt the findings of the EDA.
So moved.
Second.
All right, any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Motion carries. All right, is there any other business tonight? Councilmember Dennis.
All right. Well, I see the hesitation and looking at the staff if it's permitted for me to talk, but I do appreciate the moment to have other business. As always, I like to address the concerns of residents who have come up this evening to express concerns and open comment. A couple of those residents, I hope their answers have been addressed. I I can't really address Ms. McGregor's comments because that has, I believe, been silenced with the merit increase for the city administrator, so I won't bring up that topic, although I did vote no. I also have the residents who have come up and talked about the tax increase. Like I mentioned, I voted against that, but I believe that would probably violate the rules that I'm not allowed to say words like wasteful spending.
You're
or
correct. Please move on to the next topic.
Okay. So I will not speak on the topic because I'm not allowed to, but I do want to note that I apologize for those residents that I can't speak on your issue. I want to just echo Mr. Trahan. His amazing downtown parade was phenomenal weather, phenomenal turnout. And in our world where we have people who are longing for places of belonging because of incredible isolation, I believe this is a needed thing in our city. I want to just give my biggest admiration to the work he and all of the partners did to put that amazing event on. My children and we all attended. It was just phenomenal. And I just want to say thank you to Mr. Trahan and for every single person who put time and effort into putting that on. The New Year's celebration, I know the mayor, if she was here tonight, she probably would echo a little bit about this too. I've attended those celebrations, family orientated. Great. I hope that people can make it to that to celebrate with community. So those are just a little bit overview of what I heard on open comment I wanted to address. The open comment, the other business, I had some very important items to address last week on the 2nd. I was not able to address because I was unjustly removed from the premises for
Okay,
speaking.
Councilmember Dennis, move on.
So I just want to, I will not talk about all the issues. I did send out an email that was forwarded on. People have the right to request that if they would like to see some of my thoughts and comments about that unjust banishment. But I will move on to the seasonal parking. I've had many residents in Ward 6 and across the city who have been given tickets. There is a lot of frustration, obviously, because, they're expensive. But I believe the seasonal parking does disproportionately impact more economically challenged areas of our city. And I believe it impacts marginalized communities more than others who I know from working for traffic calming and other issues here in Ward 6. There's renters, there's people who have multiple people leaving their homes. And the burden of trying to coordinate that is so difficult. And so these huge tickets, $40 tickets, are an incredible burden on many people. And so I'm not going to bring this up right now because I was not able to reach out to other council members and do a CIA because of the limitations that have been placed upon me. So I cannot do a CIA on this issue, but I would hope that in future councils that there would be a proposal to have a warning system prior to a ticket being issued. I think people should be able to have a warning before they have that huge ticket because there's a lot of reasons why people, myself and a lot of people, are confused by that system. So I'm hoping that can be brought forth in the new year. I'm not going to be able to do that here because of, like I said, my voice has been silenced on that. I do want to say I hope to participate in many other meetings. I was given a letter from a future council member forbidding me from attending council meetings in the future.
Councilmember
Point of
Dennis,
order.
We're out of order. Move on.
Okay, just stated a fact. Okay, so the other last little item, there's many items. I'm just going to stop so I don't actually participate with the First Amendment further because I am told not to be able to say many things. So I have written a very brief farewell. I know that is historically the tradition of council to say a brief little thank you at the end of their term. The 4 years have been wonderful in an aspect of a learning experience and seeing the challenges that we still need to address. So I usually don't write things. I know other people do script a lot of what they say. Maybe that's my problem, as I need to script more of what I say before living in real time and addressing issues as they come on the dais. I should maybe prepare a little bit on and write things down, but I think that people's voices should be heard in real time and information should be addressed. And people should not have their ideas set in stone. So I think that not address, anyway, so I'm just going to read a little brief thing that I wrote, and I hope other council members might have something to say as well after this. But Ruth Bader Ginsburg stated, one lives not just for one's self, but for one's community. And I believe so strongly in those words, and I believe those are words that others should live by as well. One lives not just for oneself, but for one's community. And shortly after I moved into my Elton Hills home in 2007, several years ago, Councilmember Sandra Means came up to me and asked me to be a community organizer. And she inspired me with her courage, her unwavering integrity, and the resilience of continuing to speak up even when times are hard. And I just want to thank Sandra Means with all my heart for inspiring me to run for office. I'm honored to sit in this spot where so many other great leaders have sat. Dave Senjem, Sandra Means, Annalisa Johnson, so many people have sat here and helped influence legislation to have a better future for many. And I thank all of those because what they have done and what people do on the dais impact lives for generations to come. Being a council member is a full-time, look at what we have to read just for the small meetings we have, full-time, nonpartisan job that I have always taken seriously, and those who disagree don't know the job. I would like to take a moment to thank those through our community who have paid attention, who continue to pay attention to what's really going on and who speak up and take a stance. I thank the neighbors in Ward 6 who I will continue to advocate for you and all residents in Rochester long after I'm out of office. I would like to thank the volunteers, the community leaders, my family and friends who have supported and mentored me. But most of all, I would like to thank my 3 children who are present here tonight for being there. When I ran for public office, I ran to help not just my 3 kids' future to have a more safe, inclusive, and just tomorrow, but for all children regardless of their circumstances of life. Every child deserves a better future. And to be a public servant also means that you will have sacrifices, you will miss family dinners, you will miss Little League games and orchestra concerts. You will miss important events because your community becomes your family and you treat them like family, you show up. Rochester has a long way to go, long way. Oh my gosh, long way to be an inclusive, affordable, and accessible city. A long way. But first it starts with integrity and compassion and the need for transparency. We need we need transparency to even have a conversation, and that needs to change. We need to have that. We need to have government accountable for the people that they are here to serve. I wish the best for the next council. I see some of them in the audience. I hope that they will continue to ask those hard questions, ask the hard questions, and make sure you get the answers so you can have the creative conversations. You can have the courageous dialogue that will make the change. It is so important. We are all in this together. Transparency is trust, and we must put people before politics. Put people before the lobbyist agendas and the large corporations. People must come first. We need fearless leaders who won't stay silent, even if they're the only ones who speak up. We need leaders that will not rubber stamp, will not bow down to money and power, and who will speak up for what is right. They must speak up. And I worry so much that residents are going to be left behind when big money is coming into the city. And I just hope with all my heart that the leaders of tomorrow, the ones who are coming onto the dais, will not let the big money and power dictate the lives of those who are struggling to stay here. And just last of all, I just want to thank all of those who put community before themselves and for all of those who are on the side of kindness. And I just thank you to everyone who is making the world a better place.
Councilmember Keen.
Yeah, I want to again, thanks, City Administrator Zelms for her nice summary of for my peers that are leaving and presentation of the plaques. I think it's important to acknowledge that last thing, and I do want to acknowledge this last meeting too. It's wild to think back that our 7-person council got 4 new people 4 years ago. And again, just you don't think of it this way, but realize that when that was happening, we were in the middle of COVID. We were in the middle of changing over our city administrator. We did not have this 1 week of training that the 2025 people are going through right now. We had a lot of upheaval going on, and the first times we were doing meetings, it was on Teams, and the technology sort of worked and didn't work. So there was a lot to work through those first couple of years. But this council got 4 new voices, and in some cases, very distinctive voices. And I just want to acknowledge, when I think of Councilmember Bransford, I think of like the neighborhood integrity things he championed, the accessible rec, and so many more things like that, that were the things that Mark made important up here. When I think of Councilmember Kirkpatrick, I think of groundwater protections. I think of, local urban food villages and food security, and the trees. When I think of Councilmember Dennis, she brings up, there's affordable housing that's built in this city right now because Councilmember Dennis was up here to vote for it. I think of her championing community voices and more. With Council President Carlson, she brought this idea that everything was consensus and trying to build consensus for municipal decisions. And that idea of focus on social justice, which isn't a common thing at a city council thing, but that was something that she brought and championed at this dais and tried to make it important, not just for her time here, but to us. In January, we'll have 4 new voices joining, and there'll be different perspectives and different priorities. But I do expect your priorities will be extended. And I say tonight that your work has impacted how I approach policy work and the work we've done over the last 4 years. And I want to kind of commit to you that I will try to keep those alive, those priorities going forward, as this always will work, that a different group of citizens will be up here trying to figure out how to take the city into the future. But I did want to acknowledge my peers and the impact you guys have had on me, and sincerely thank you for your work.
Thank you for that, Councilmember Keen.
Thank you, Mr. Keen.
It's lovely. Well, before we have a motion to adjourn, just echoing thanks and gratitude for the community and my colleagues up on the dais and amongst our staff. I've tried to send out many notes of gratitude, and just, this has been a life-changing experience.
Indeed.
Indeed.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, staff. Thank you, electorate.
All right.
To make a motion to adjourn?
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, say nay. Adjourned.
Recording stopped.